What is it you want, Barry? What do you want? You want the moon? Just say the word and I'll throw a lasso around it and pull it down.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dying times here.
Come with me if you want to live.
That's it, man. Game over, man. Game over.
The Force will be with you, always.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to 20th Century Geek. I'm your regular host, Scott Weatherly, and we are getting to a pet project that's been sat on the back burner for a little while. Finally getting around to it. I have two of my favourite people on the podcast with me. My brother from another mother and the host of the other podcast we do, Stories Out Time and Space, Julian Darius. Hi, Julian. How you doing?
Any day we get to talk about Hudson Hawk is a good day for me, brother.
Indeed. And the other person joining us to fill out the triumvirate is a regular partner on this and Storytime host, Tony Farina. How you doing, Tony?
Hello, I am swinging on a star. I just ate my reindeer goat cheese pizza. I'm ready. I'm feeling good.
So you've got your cappuccino. We're ready to go. It's all good. And we're joined by we're joined by family pets and tea. So
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So we are. Yeah. We had this on. So this is the thing. This started as a conversation where the three of us kind of acknowledged that we feel that the film, the 1991 Bruce Willis adventure comedy, Hudson Hawk, is an underrated film. And so I just want to highlight some of the cast in this as well. So we've got Bruce Willis, Danny Aiello as Tommy Fivetone, Andy McDowell as Anna, James Coburn, Richard E. Grant, Sandra Bernhard are sort of the main sort of ones. Topping out quite an interesting cast of the story of a thief who is a cat burglar thief who comes out of prison after 10 years and is co-opted into a series of robberies in order to bring together a alchemy device that will turn base metals into gold, based on the design of Leonardo da Vinci, for two crazed billionaires, the Mayflowers, and also ends up going up against the Vatican, because obviously they hold certain information about Leonardo da Vinci for some reason. So yeah, it go. Really.
I mean,
the Vatican
to me,
is like a pimp. The Vatican
is like
yes.
I love that. The Vatican is like a pimp. That's right. I listen. That just listen to you read the plot. I'm like, yeah, that sounds awesome. I can't wait to see that. Oh wait, I've owned it on every possible medium. I've owned it on VHS. I've owned it on DVD, on Blu-ray. I own a digital copy. I'm dressed like Hudson Hawk right now. I had the poster on my wall when I was in college because it came out in '91, and it was my freshman year in college. I've seen this movie so many times. I love it so much, and I'm here for it. And that plot that you just said, honestly, I've not seen the Fast movies, but it seems to me they owe Bruce Willis and Michael Lehman a lot of money because it sounds like their plots are really dumb. And yet they make billions of dollars and this movie gets panned.
Yeah, I'll get to my thoughts, but Julian, what your initial thoughts to round out and your relationship then with the Hudson Hawk?
Well, this movie came out at a strange moment in Bruce Willis' career. Bruce Willis could have taken a shit on celluloid and it would have made $200 million. Okay. And in fact, I remember watching at the time Sandra Bernhard on one of these late night shows, and she said, like, I'm not sure how this is going to do, but Bruce Willis is the one who, everything he touches turns to gold, so to speak. And I can't imagine, I'm going to happen to be in the first flop, so this is my chance. And they sort of, it's one of those interviews where it's like, you see the interview for Star Trek V and, Bill Shatner says like, I can't imagine Trekkies aren't going to show up for this one. And it's like, A, faint praise. Like this is how you're banking on the movie doing well. Like I'm not going to say it's good. I'm just saying I
I'm just gonna
imagine
say
people will show
it says the name on the title, so that's good enough. Right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And the poster is terrible. I mean, the poster, this was marketed like a Bruce Willis movie. It was marketed like an adventure movie. And it is a farce. And it is an over the top, out of control farce. And it is an amazingly good movie. This is actually a good movie.
Yes.
And for me, the Mayflowers make it every line of dialogue. Like I'm amazed by how, people didn't seem to get this. Like every line of dialogue is crisp, it's tight. There's a joke every line of dialogue in this movie, and it works or it doesn't. But if it doesn't work for you, wait 10 seconds. You've probably missed 2 more lines of dialogue and something happened visually. Like this is an amazing movie from start to finish.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. I would say I just want to jump off what Julian says there. Like, I know it's Bruce Willis, Robert Kraft, a story, and Dan Waters and Steven D'Souza screenplay. But you know who it also Tex Avery deserves an honorary credit, because what you just described, Julian, is all of those old Tex Avery cartoons. The reason they stand up, the reason like you can go back and still watch them, is because they're relentless.
Yes.
And this was clearly, they were like, hey, you know who we all love? Tex Avery. You know what he doesn't do is let up. Yeah.
This is a live action Bugs Bunny cartoon. Like, this is they've taken that idea of like, who's the coolest character? How do we make them? He's sarcastic, he's cool. Like, oh, let's make Bruce Willis into Bugs Bunny. Like, it's that kind of idea. Thing about Bruce though, one of the things is that Bruce Willis, this actually leaps him into an interesting part of his career. You're right about him being in a position, because he obviously makes Blind Date, having come off Moonlighting, and everyone's like, oh, he's gonna, this is hidden, this is his star-making vehicle. It's a complete flop. He keeps sort of turning up in like different things. Sunset, then he makes Die Hard, and everyone's like, he's the new action star. He's a serious actor to take serious. Like, he's now an action star. That's 88, and then he obviously makes. But he keeps making these weird films for a little bit. Like you said, they make money. Look Who's Talking. I can't fault that. I kind of like Look Who's Talking. You get Die Hard 2. Look Who's Talking 2. Bonfire of the Vanities. So he's kind of doing all this weird stuff. And then 1991, I've not heard of 2 of the films he made in 1991. So you've got Hudson Hawk. You've got Last Boy Scout. 2 excellently made films. And then you've got Billy Bathgate and Mortal Thoughts. And Mortal Thoughts, I believe, is where he met Demi Moore. So
Billy Bathgate isn't great. Mortal Thoughts is okay. I actually kind of love Blind Date.
Yeah, but there's this constant like push and pull. You can see that him like action star, comedian, action star, comedian. Like, he really can't pick a thought. And what's interesting is, then he has like Pulp Fiction, when it came out in 1994. I remember people saying, this will straighten out his career. And it kind of did, but it's kind of interesting that, like you say, like he was making bank for many, many films. He was known as a bankable star, but like he did make some really odd choices. Like 93 and 94, he was like, I'm going to do some erotic thrillers. Just for no reason.
Color of Night. Was that the one?
Striking Distance is kind of the same sort of thing. He like, cool. And like, yeah, so he had some odd choices. And so when you watch Hudson Hawk and you see that he has a story credit in it, you sort of goes, that makes sense. Like, I'm completely understand. Like, he was at the height of his game and was just throwing shit out. Like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And so yeah, but I think this gets left in the shadow of The Last Boy Scout for 1991. I think, which is Shane Black and Tony Scott. Yeah. But I do think it's a shame, because I do think this really stands up. I think you're right. It's a great film.
No, is Last Boy Scout? Yeah, that is.
Yeah.
That
Shane
is
Black and Tony Scott.
Yeah. You guys did that. You guys covered that.
I've not covered it on here. No.
I've
been doing Beverly Hills Cop recently.
But you did years ago. You did all the Shane Black stuff, and for some reason, I thought you covered The Last Boy Scout.
I did Long Kiss Goodnight.
Long Kiss Goodnight, which is of course.
Which
glorious.
Is
my favorite Shane Black film.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Sorry. Well, obviously, you need to put that on the list of The Last Boy Scout. I saw that in the theater too.
But bringing it back to this, one of the, like I say, it's fascinating that he has all this story, this weird story credit. But you say about, like I said, this is billed as a Bruce Willis movie. Like he is Hudson Hawk, but it actually is. Like I say, it's a really good ensemble film. Like all the top players in this are doing really good stuff. Like everyone's really good. I do think this is Richard E. Everyone talks about Whitnell and I. This is Richard E. Grant at his top. Like this is my favorite Richard E. Grant. Some of his deliveries in this are phenomenal and insane. And you sort of say some actors are just born to say play certain roles. I'm like, oh no, this was the role he stepped into. It was like, I can finally be myself, and no one will know.
The balls to say the line, right? And Julian, you started nodding, so I don't want to take. But my favorite thing he says is, "What can I say, Hawkmeister? I'm the villain."
Yeah.
I mean, what balls to say it totally straight faced like that? To be just like, this is the movie we're in. The only thing it was missing is if he would have turned to us to say I'm the villain, but he sort of winks at us the whole time anyway.
Yeah. Oh, the whole film is, but yeah, all the cast, like even James Coburn, like taking the Mickey out of all of his past roles and stuff like that. Like for all these sort of like everything, everyone talks about like meta films today. I just kind of felt that like Hudson Hawk was just massively ahead of its time. Like the world was just not quite ready for what this film is presenting.
Yeah, the candy bars are great.
Yeah.
I always love the candy bars. They're so good. But I mean, few things in the world. Let's be crystal fucking clear. Few things in the world beat Sandra Bernhard.
Mm-hmm.
I will watch that woman pick up paper clips. I will watch that woman, watch paint dry and pay $20 for the privilege of watching that in a movie theater. Okay. I mean, she is amazing. And the fact that she did not have a Bruce Willis-like career angers the hell out of me. I mean, she came back recently. Of course, she was a comedian. She came back recently on FX, on Pose, and kind of is having a second moment now. But she should have been a A-list movie star. And yeah, I mean, I get that she's kind of off-putting, and she has sort of like the French have a term, sort of jolie laide, sort of like ugly beautiful. She's got one of those like weird faces where it's like, this is a really beautiful woman, but also ugly. Like, I don't know how to understand this. But she has so much poise, so much intelligence, so much confidence. She is just a walking force of nature in every role that she's in. And I am madly in love with her, and I want her and Richard Grant to just have all of the scenes in every movie. I want these characters to live forever. To me, they steal the show constantly.
I would love, obviously, spoilers, of course, they don't make it to the end of the film, but I'm with you. Give me a prequel, give me anything with them. I mean, and I don't even care like them now, them, because they're two actors who are still amazing and they've aged. They're not like, they don't have a picture of themselves in the attic like Rob Lowe. They actually have aged in some way, shape, or form. But like, I would think it would be actually on brand to do a prequel with them as they are, but pretending that they're in their 20s, like when Darwin met Minerva. I mean, that is a show. Give me a 6-part miniseries. Let the two of, don't even give them a script. Just get Michael Lehman in the room and say go, and let the two of them chew the scenery up. I couldn't agree more. She's exceptional in this. She knows, and that's the thing. There's a handful of people who know what they are. She knows. Who's kind of filled her void and has become a bit of an A-lister in modern day is Awkwafina. She's not as talented as Sandra Bernhard, but she knows what she is. She's like, I can be a lead. I can be funny. I can do an action movie. I can be this. I can be in the rom-com. And so it's almost like that's because I love Awkwafina and everything she's in. If she's in it, I'm probably going to watch it. I don't like all of them. I don't always liking the end results, but her performance is always interesting and earnest. And I think there's a room for that person to come through and be like, oh yeah, my talent is enough. And like, I think you said it right, Julian, she's unsettling, but that's because she's a powerful woman on screen and she's She's not afraid of any of these people. And the way that she literally slaps around Danny Aiello in this movie, and though she manhandles Bruce Willis, like the star, she physically manhandles him and he takes it. And like they even do the sound effects when it's so good. Yeah, it's just amazing.
This is one of those films that when I watch it, and I've never seen outtakes of it, I've never seen like a blooper reel, but I can't imagine there's ever a scene that Richard E. Grant and Sandra Bernhard are in that they got the first take. Because I can't imagine them doing some of these deliveries and everyone not just like dying instantly. I mean, some of the, especially the scene, the fact that they've got the big desk and they come storming, even from their introduction, when they come in and outbid each other and everything, and it's just sort of so over the top and so phenomenal. But the one where they're going through, like, especially the one where they're going through the slides, they're basically presenting their plan, and all of a sudden there's a slide there of them in S&M gear, and the butler stood in the background looking sort of relatively uncomfortable with all this. And they're just sort of like, no one saw that, move on. And it's just, I don't know. They're just sort of I think it's like as a force. They're a force of nature through this film. And I think what's interesting is, and Bruce Willis is known to have had an ego, especially later on. If you've ever listened to sort of like Kevin Smith talk about Cop Out and a few other people that have talked about some of his later films, how he was kind of problematic and stuff. I think he clearly, he must have had at this point, but I think there's a point where he's like, I'm not that. I think he recognizes he's the star of the film, but he's not the flair. He's not the sort of like the light at the heart of this film. Do you know what I mean? He's the star, but not. You don't go away sort of with a raw negative of Hudson Hawk burnt into retinas, but you do sort of Richard E. Grant and Sandra Bernhard. And you're like, no, they're the things I remember. They're the quotable ones. So I don't know. I wonder how he dealt with that, because they're clearly having the time of their lives.
Well, I mean, I think that there are a lot of other, quotes in here that are good. I mean, I do think that, the Mayflowers steal the show. I mean, I remember being a kid and, puzzling with my brother over all of these quotes. It's like, I call them the MTVIA, it's like, oh, okay. It's a generational thing. I mean, and I get why people didn't, especially like you're talking about the entrance scene with the Mayflowers at the bidding, for Da Vinci's work. But I get why people couldn't place this.
Mm-hmm.
But you can see how with time it makes a lot more sense. Like, I mean, there are some moments where you're like, yeah, this is, a star vehicle gone crazy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where this is, Bruce Willis just doing whatever the hell he wants, and it's a little uneven. But I mean, when they enter, there is a sort of reaction, I think that even I have, of sort of like, how are we supposed to take these lines? Like they're so over the top, but also awkward. Like, like, I mean, the way they deliver the lines is enthusiastic, but also like, are they playing autistic billionaires? Like it's very weird. But I think if anything, what I was thinking of is like, we live in the world of the Mayflowers. We live in the world of eccentric billionaires who control our lives. Elon Musk runs the American government.
Mm-hmm.
And, and I wish he were half as smart. I mean, boy, he is dumb as rocks. And, if I wish he were half as smart or half as interesting as either of the Mayflowers, let alone both of them.
I totally agree. That's another one of the things that this movie does that is so far ahead of its time, is you say it's farce, Julian, and it is, but I also feel like it's a stinging satire of everything. Like, I think it manages to walk the line, because there's a way to go full farce, and then there's a way to do, like, to live in it. But I just like think of all the things you don't get right without it, like in pop culture, but the things that let it predicts this. You exactly right. This whole thing, I actually got into an argument with my mother recently because she was saying about how smart Elon Musk is. And I was like, what one idea did he have that he actually did on his own? PayPal was Peter Thiel. Like, Peter Thiel is an evil genius. Like, Peter Thiel is the Mayflowers, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I don't understand how you're a gay Republican who's also trying to buy New Zealand, who's also a genius, who's also evil. Like, I don't understand. He's libertarianism on steroids. But like, Elon Musk wishes he was Peter Thiel. He's not, but he just keeps saying things out loud. And like even my mother, who I don't think is a dumb person, buys it. And I'm like, he's an idiot. He doesn't know anything. Where the Mayflowers, like they're sort of secretive, right? Like they are the Peter Thiels. They are the Billy. So in 1991, these guys are like, oh yeah, no, this is the world. Like this is what happens when you have capitalism run amok, and uncontrolled, and the world gets smaller with technology. 4 people can tell everybody what to do. And so this is like the evil plan. I mean, and this is totally, Elon Musk is trying to live this out with his like crypto dreams, right?
Oh, yeah.
The plot of this movie is if you remade this movie, it wouldn't be gold, it would be crypto, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. If you remade this now. But go back to sort of like to emphasize the point, there's a great line where James Coburn's Kaplan challenges, appears to Hudson Hawk, and he says that, no, I work for influential people. He says the American government. He says no, influential people. So it clearly sort of already is sort of saying like, no, corporations and big business are they're the things that make the world work. So, yeah, you're right.
It's religion and money.
Yeah,
I mean, this again, like Julian said right from the top, this is such a good movie. You could write a thesis, as we were talking off air, right, on either the government's influence in the world and the way that the world has shaped, and political events, and like putting despots in power, and the religious, or money. And this is the confluence of the two. And right, Kaplan says,
and organized crime.
And organized crime, right? The Mario Brothers, of course. Chef's kiss. Frank Stallone. Salute you, kind sir, for being in this. Yeah, this movie is totally making fun of. I wonder if he and Sly had to have some words after him appearing in this movie, because
this comes out around This comes around out the same time as Oscar. So,
oh wow, that movie deserved a flop.
Mm-hmm.
That movie wasn't good. So, anyway, I couldn't agree more with what you're saying. I just think it's so smart. It just goes back to what Julian said, like from the beginning. I know it's not an interesting show for us to say it's a good movie, but it's layered. And again, because people weren't ready, it's just like another brilliant film that nobody understood, The Last Action Hero. Time has proven that these were heroic actions that Willis and Schwarzenegger did by being in those movies. You don't get Deadpool without that. You don't get a lot of movies without Hudson Hawk, and it's just too bad. I mean, and here we are still talking about it, so that makes me
happy. No, I thought Ryan Reynolds came to mind a bit watching it recently, and again I was like, could Ryan Reynolds do this? I was like, no, he hasn't got the sardonic sort of like sarcastic humor of Willis. Isn't a thing to himself, and I think a lot of this sort of balances on his cool. And he is definitely cool in this, and how that is sort of poked fun at times, and no one is safe from being poked fun at. But like you say, there's a coolness to this, that is sort of just riding through the film, like as you said, Bruce Willis is sort of like that. Not to say that the heart of the film, he's the main character. But like every time they do things, like sort of like him coming out of prison, sort of like he has the sort of the get up, he's got the the trilby, the sort of the vest, he's got the way he dresses, drinking the cappuccino, the way he deals with people, and then when you get to the iconic really cat burglar with him and Danny, what's it, Two Tones, Tommy Five Tones, and then swinging on a star, and you're just sort of like, it's brilliant, like it's and it's sort of like it's one of those films, like you say, it's kind of, I can imagine, like, it's not just ahead of its time, but the way that I can imagine a marketing company being handed this, the distributor, whoever's produced this, and gone, we've got this Bruce Willis vehicle, it's got all these other people in, we've got to promote it, go do the marketing, and someone's sitting down and watching a cut of this and being like, I don't know how we sell this film to anybody, because they're going, oh, Bruce Willis, oh cool, what's it about? It's about a cat burglar that gets involved in having to steal things from the Vatican. Oh cool, so it's an adventure film. Yes. But it has this elements of comedy. Oh, okay, there's a scene of him falling out the back of an ambulance down a freeway, and trying to pick up some girls on the way. Okay, like, how do you deal with that? So it's comedy. Yes, it is a comedy, but it's got this in. It's sort of like if you've ever watched the trailer for this film, it's quite clear they didn't have a clue how
Well, look
to
at the
sell this
poster.
film. Yeah.
And
Well, they
it's
were just
like,
like
catch
Bruce.
the adventure, like this is not an Indiana Jones movie. Like,
Oh, there it is. Okay, thank you. You said it. There's my opening. That is my theory. This is making fun of the Indiana Jones movies. This is, and that was when I was talking to Spider Dan on my defense of this back on whenever my first time on Spider Dan on the Secret Defenders. I said it is a farce, Julian. I'm totally with you. But the satirical thing that it's punching the most at is the Indiana Jones movies. Like in '91, that all three of the original trilogy were out. The thing with the hat, even at the end, the thing that saves him from Kaplan at the end is his hat falls off, and he says, "Oh, my hat." And every time it's like sprinkler system set up in the back, and you fucking believe it. Everything is like ridiculous and over the top. In the novelization, there's a moment, right, where he says it feels too much like it's an Indiana Jones movie. Hudson Hawk says that out loud in the book. So when I read that, reading the novelization, which by the way, audience, Scott and I did, and Julian said, no, he made the better choice than
He did. He did indeed.
But yes,
he
that
just
is
sent an email back. There's like one sentence, like, "I'm not doing that."
Yeah.
Like,
decision making.
I'm the prima donna in this group. Clearly, like, I'm Bruce Willis, just going like, "Yeah, I don't think so, brother."
I'll listen to you guys talk about it.
I would say though, one of the things to talk about the book and sort of say about the marketing. There's two things. You look at the posters. There is this sort of thing. You said the posters is just sort of like, it's Bruce Willis. Every single poster is just Bruce Willis, right? It's a Bruce Willis vehicle. Same with the front of the book. And it's got this shy, sensitive, law-abiding, polite, respectful. I don't think so. Terrible, terrible tagline. Or it's got, I think, one that says like swinging into action. And it's sort of like a cutout of a silhouette of Hudson Hawk swinging into action. Just as terrible. So they really didn't know how to do this. Just to sort of hit, and I will go slightly with your Indiana Jones satire, because in the book as well, he did have a pet monkey, Little Eddie.
Right, the pet monkey. They cut that from the movie completely. Yeah,
yeah, because you find out that Kaplan killed the monkey.
Little Eddie? Right, Little Eddie.
And he has a photo.
That's his actual name.
Yeah, Eddie Hudson or Eddie. Yeah, so
Eddie Hawkins.
That's it, Eddie Hawkins. And he's got this picture of this monkey that keeps cropping up. And then at the end of it, you find out Kaplan killed the monkey. And I'm kind of glad they cut that, because it's irrelevant and stupid and stuff. It's a bit weird. But I thought about what you said, because I recognize the Indiana Jones line. However, I will go one further, because I think this is taking the mickey out of all kind of one and done adventure characters. So you've got Indiana Jones, everything's wrapped up at the end. James Bond, I mean, this is clearly taking the makeup like James Bond. But there's all these kind of like thief characters. Lupin, the thief, that's a pulp character, sort of a French comic and sort of character. These kind of sort of anti-hero, kind of cool anti-hero characters of sort of the 60s and 70s. Like, this feels like a film of like, it definitely has a European feel. Like, there's there's a sort of Italian superhero one that's pretty similar to this kind of thing as well, where they're all sort of thieves, but they always get the women because they're the cool ones. So I've really felt like this is actually tapping into that as well. This idea of sort of like, those European kind of sexy like thieves and sort of villains, but they're the good ones. Like they have a code of honor or something like that. And so, like, yeah, no, I see what you mean. But it's a satire of that. Like, they can be cool and suave and sexy, but the American one's kind of bumbling and, silly with it. But it works, because I think you've just still got Hudson Hawk cool. Bruce Willis still brings the cool that makes him work as that character, but everything else around it is kind of crazy.
I never thought about that. But like, you're talking Cary Grant. There's like 50 Cary Grant movies that this is, right? Charade, To Catch a Thief, everything that Cary Grant did with Hitchcock, essentially, what you're saying, right? I didn't think about that at all. That is totally true, because those you think of those as a series, like the Cary Grant Hitchcock stuff, but they're not. They're not. Those are all individual standalone movies. And they're all Cary Grant and a woman who's far too young with him and is also angelic in every film. And Andy McDowell isn't that much younger than Bruce Willis, so they don't do that here. But yes, you're totally spot on. I didn't think about that at all. I love that. What do you think, Julian? That blew my mind a little.
No, I do. I really love the Cary Grant point. That's definitely here.
Mm. Yeah, Mike. I'm just saying the danger. I think one thing is danger diabolique is the Italian sort of super thief and everything, and thing that this I feel this was sort of tapping into. But you're right. There is that sort of there's a suave, but the patter as well feels very much of those kinds of the patter of the dialogue is very much those sort of like 30s and 40s kind
Well,
of.
there's a Rat Pack thing happening too, and the Rat Pack
Yes.
is just two. Unfortunately, it's just the two of them because again, budget. And again, I'm sure they didn't have the monkey because number one, it's dumb, but also it would have been way too expensive.
Yeah.
Like having a live animal on set, there's no way that they could have pulled off some of the stuff they did. But there's definitely that because the way that they sing a Bing Crosby song and they're like all this stuff that they're doing. So there's a lot of this Rat Packy stuff and the way that they dress and the way that they talk, and he's Tommy Five Tone and so there's like that cool that gangster cool from some of those Rat Pack movies, very Ocean's 11, yeah, that's a great point. So the banter is there, but it relies on just really the two of them, and then when Coburn comes in, he really steps in really well. Like he could have easily been a third member of their little Rat Pack because he is killing it. You forget, because Coburn, like you said, he's making fun of himself, but he clearly has a lot of chops as an actor. Like he's really good in this, and because it's hard to step in and be like, my whole career has led to me making fun of myself in this movie. It's so bananas.
Well, I think you get to there are actors that sort of do these kinds of things. I think James Coburn's one of those because he did like all the war films and cowboy films, and he did several spy films and all this other stuff. He's kind of like old enough now where he's like, I've done all that kind of thing. I'm kind of comfortable, so why not have some fun and poke fun at the tropes that I've built up over like decades of cinema. So I think he's sort of like it must be like a release or sort of like a catharsis for him to be sort of like, cool, I get to poke fun at. Our Man Flint was the one I was thinking about, where he's like a James Bond sort of rip off and all this other thing. Where I was like, oh, this feels cool. Like he's kind of just taking the mick, and that's fun. So I like that.
Yeah, those Flint movies. That was obviously, there was a series of the Flint movies too. Yeah, and no, I think that's such a good point. I mean, he's done a lot of shit too. I mean, that's the thing. He was definitely one of those guys who worked. Like I just pulled up his IMDb. Like in 1973, he's got like 4 movies, and you're like, wow. He never. And it's kind of like, and unfortunately, we didn't know this at the end, as we all, I know, gave Bruce Willis a good poke in the ribs towards the end of his career there, not knowing what he was going through, because he was definitely just like making angry faces through a ton of shitty movies, and I've seen them all, and everyone I'm like, I'm hoping this will be the movie he shows up and he's like, he is Bruce Willis. The only one in the last 10 years where he showed up, it seemed like he cared, was Motherless Brooklyn, but he's only in that for like 5 minutes, and he's really great in it. But of course we didn't know what was happening, so obviously Ed Norton knew, so he managed to get him in his moments of just enough, get these lines in, because that was the last movie I saw him in where he actually seemed to want to be in it. So he's in a lot of shit movies, but it is definitely like James Coburn is like, what's the paycheck? You're gonna pay me $1 million and I just gotta stand around and make a face? All right, I'll do it. So
yeah. Well, I think there's a lot of characters like that where no one in there. James Coburn, although he's probably saying yes, I'm in it for the check, but I still think he's giving it something. Like he's bringing something. I think he's doing something well with it. But I think even some of the lesser characters, there's B tier characters, are sort of like you say, like the candy bars. They are fun.
I saw Don Harvey. Weird. I saw Don Harvey as Macbeth live. Don Harvey he went to U of M, so he was in Jackson, Michigan. They have the Michigan Shakespeare Festival, and Macbeth. I didn't know it was going to be him. I roll up. I'm excited because Macbeth is my favorite tragedy because I'm basic, and I roll up, and there's Don Harvey, and of course I'd already seen this movie, and I was like out of my mind. Like I mean, it's also Macbeth, so it's amazing to see live, and he's so physical as an actor. But it's like you were fucking Snickers. And now there you are. He was great, by the way. But again, you can see, because he was a stage actor, like he went to school on a, on a theater. You see it in here, like his presence, the way he moves, the way he doesn't step on a line. It looks like he's listening, because Snickers is really the only. I mean, Almond Joy does the most maybe talking, but it almost seems like Snickers is the leader of the candy bars, and so he's got to keep this wacky bunch together. But you mentioned, Julian, that candy bars are great, and Lorraine Toussaint, who plays Almond Joy, to say the line she says, she's great, right?
Yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, and I love her line of, try being named chlamydia for a year, of like this mocking this sort of themed supervillain, idea. But I want to interject this idea that you were talking about the songs and everything else, and look, I love this movie, and I totally relate to being like, oh my God, you're Snickers, and like, the actor going like, who is this lunatic? But I do want to point out, like, this was such a star vehicle, and there are ways in which this is a bad movie, right? Like, this should be a disaster. Yeah, you're talking about like the chimpanzee, was it?
They were gonna have her monkey,
or her monkey, right? So, and the songs, like, this is stupid that they get the songs, the song timing wrong. They just put in whatever value. It doesn't matter. Like, you can't be bothered to look this shit up, right? like they love these songs. I mean, and why is that there? It's because Bruce Willis always fancied himself an old crooner, so throw that in. Like, we like monkeys, so throw that in. Like, this is one of those movies where they kept throwing shit in, and it's like when somebody assembles a plot by like listing on a napkin the things that they like and want to put together, and usually those are disasters. So every once in a while it's amazing, and it just hits the zeitgeist and strikes fire. But this is one of those movies where obviously it did not the zeitgeist. But I mean, there are these traces of like everything in the kitchen sink is in here. This, you've got the Vatican, but it's like they're speaking into these microphones that are like light up crucifixes, and it looks visually stunning. It does not make any kind of sense, right? But it's like, this is another idea that they just threw in here. I mean, there's a gold machine in this damn thing that Leonardo had, but never used. I mean, this is one step removed from misunderstanding the concept of the Antikythera mechanism in the final, Indiana Jones. I mean, this is dodgy and stupid, and there is a way in which this is just a bad movie, and it has the traces of its construction visible throughout, in a way that this should be exactly what it really was in history, which is the Bruce Willis train wreck. But the damn thing is, every time you commit something to celluloid, it's like, look, Gladiator is a train wreck. There's nothing about Gladiator that should work. Made up on the spot, everything goes awry. It is a stupid plot. Somehow it just works like magic on celluloid. And this is one of those movies where it's like, I don't know for the life of me. I think it's just that Tex Avery pace, and the one performance after performance after performance. And the lines of dialogue being so snappy and just worked up to, just be so weirdly themselves. I mean, it doesn't even, there are references that like it doesn't even give you don't even notice until the third time through, and you're like, that needed to be in the first act. It's only like in the third act that I get that reference. So like, there's 3 jokes I wouldn't get until the third time through. Like, how did you not notice that? I mean, that's bad, right? It's just objectively bad, but it's so snappy, and it doesn't really matter because it's just so over the top fun. It has that sense of fun, and it works, but it kind of works despite itself. Like, it still is a train wreck in progress, even in the vision that I love of it. So I just want to acknowledge that.
No, I think it's a fair point. I do. I think this is when people say they hate this film or they don't understand why people, like this film, it's a bit like with our discussion of Buckaroo Banzai. I feel this is a similar thing to me, where I watch that and I just get joy. I'm like, this is insane. It doesn't work. This is ridiculous. But it kind of, to me, like it pulls together. But this is one of those things, as you say, like scene to scene, there are bits that don't work. And what's interesting is you can see where people work. I think, the candy bars work. I think the fact that like you can see the frustration with them. Almond Joy having to tolerate these idiots that, like you say, you're saying Snickers is in charge, but she's clearly the brains. Like she's clearly sort of the one that's sort of holding it all together. And then she's not only got to deal with Snickers, you've got Kit Kat who dresses up as everybody else. He's kind of cool.
David
And
Caruso
David
as a mime.
Caruso.
Yeah.
And then Butterfingers, who is like, there's a line in this that I'd never noticed until watching it, like, really quite intently for when we watched this viewing. And they're doing a stakeout on Anna and Bruce or Hudson in her apartment, and they're obviously talking, and they know that there's something wrong, and they're sort of colluding. And Butterfinger's response is, "Do you want me to go up there and rape them and kill them?" And they just go, "Read your book." And I'm like, "What? No, sorry. Can we just go back a second to that line?"
That line is, I mean, in the remake, you don't need that line, but also it's there because obviously that's a thing that Kaplan might ask them to do at some point in time, right? And they're like, "No, Butterfinger." That line is super cringy. He does. It's almost as though he's not realizing the actor. He doesn't know what he's saying, right? It's just.
But it's kind of one of those, you recognize that there's a darkness to this, because there is a darkness to like the candy bars and stuff, but the silliness. But when you hear that line, you are like, as you say, like, oh, they've done some shit before. Like this is dark and weird, but like you then shift and you're like, now we're next to the next scene, and it's crazy and fun and silly again. And Bruce Willis is posting himself into the Vatican. Cool, I'm on board with that. So
I love that line. And I will defend that line. I think that is the funniest line in the movie. Every time I watch this movie, I stop because I am laughing so hard at that line. Like, and I mean, yes, it's out of the blue. Obviously, especially in our oversensitive, age right now, we couldn't do it. But like, that is like American Dad kind of humor, where, like there are those lines on,
like Family Guy,
where it's like, I think during the Simpsons crossover, they're like, oh, this was kind of dark, and they're like, yeah, no, on our show we would have shown the rape and had the baby participate in it, and like it and turn into an S&M gimp, like
it's South Park dark, isn't it? It's kind of like preempting that kind of thing as well.
Yeah, but also like he's stupid, right? So the idea is just like, I mean, he doesn't understand the content. Yes, it's dark. This is something, but it's also just like, it's so out of the blue. And I don't know. I love all of my humor is confrontation. Everything that I find funny to the extent that it makes the audience uncomfortable. I get Kaufman in my bones. That sounds so pretentious of me to say. That may be the most pretentious thing I've ever said in my life. But like, if I were a stand-up comedian, I all the routines I've come up with are just based on the audience not having any idea what the hell is going on, being uncomfortable, feeling obligated to act one way but not another. And I just, and that's one reason why I've always liked gay humor. I've always liked outre stuff. I've always, Hudson Hawk spoke to me right away because it was just, I wanted, make it super gay, make people uncomfortable, show me the dick going in, like make American audiences uncomfortable. I want them to be uncomfortable. And this is one of those moments where it's like, how do you react to that? It's so out of the blue. It's so, and so for me, it's one of the most brilliant, moments that I literally have to stop every time I've watched this movie in the last 15 years. I have to stop the movie to laugh for like 5 minutes after that line. and rewind it and make sure that I heard it right. I just
It
love,
is
I
the
love
out of
it
the
so
blue.
much. It's so insane. It's like,
But I think you're right. Because the thing I like about it is Almond Joy and Snickers' response to it as well. Because they are just sort of like you say, read your book, and he starts reading like a child's book, and I think it's sort of like I can't remember. It's
It's
like
green eggs in ham.
green
And then
eggs in
she
ham.
says, to yourself,
In yourself, in your
Butterfinger.
head,
Yeah.
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 So you're
Well,
right,
the
like,
thing
it
is
is-
about Almond Joy too, and again, so far ahead of its time, is that you mentioned she's the brain, she's tolerating these people, and it's intentional. She's a black woman. She's called Almond Joy. Yikes.
Yeah.
And she's, all these other stupid men she's probably reports, but on the chain of command, Butterfinger probably ranks higher than her. And she's literally driving the car in that scene. Like she's in the driver's seat of that scene. I don't think there's anything in this movie that's unintentional. Even the weird crash cuts to like, we're just not going to see them fall through the thing. We're not going to bother explain how that awning saves them. We're not going to bother explaining how he falls off a roof and then lands on a truck and then he's at dinner with Anna. None of that has to matter. Yeah. And so I think there's nothing is unintentional. It just didn't work. And you talked about uncomfortable. This is the team that gave us Heathers, right? My favorite movie of all time is unfilmable also today for different reasons. I love that movie. This is the same team. And that, again, that the logic of that movie doesn't work, but it does to me. I've seen that movie 100 times. Like it's my comfort. It is my comfort animal is the movie Heathers. I could act it out probably. And I think it's interesting though, Veronica Sawyer and Hudson Hawk have this exact same outfit, light blue t-shirt and a black vest at one point in time. So obviously that was a look they were going for. But in the same way, it is that idea of creating something that only makes sense to you, and we dare you to like it or not like it. And if you don't, we're okay. I mean, the difference is Heathers cost $20 and this costs $65 million. And so, like that's a huge, but obviously Waters then goes to write Batman Returns. So he's okay. He's doing okay. But I do think and that movie's really uncomfortable, right? I mean, that of all the Batman movies, that is the one that cranks up. Like
it caused Batman Returns caused McDonald's to have to sue Warner Brothers. So
because of how creepy the penguin is.
Yeah, well, they're basically like, we can't turn this into Happy Meals. You took our money. Where's our fun, frolicking Batman that you promised us? Why are we having like babies being cast out into rivers and child abduction?
Yeah, there's a child abduction, creepy. But don't forget the other villain is dressed in S&M gear for kids, But this came at this wonderful point in American culture where American culture was kind of pivoting. So this is like, if this had come out a few years later, it would have been much more successful. Even though it probably wouldn't have been the runaway hit of the year. I mean, this is 91. So this is like before Clinton comes in. This is the era of hair bands. This is the era of like just the dumbest action movies taking themselves seriously. This is before the deconstruction, has to happen in some way to, get it made. So this is just everything is straight on the level. Everything is, Reaganomics, running on fumes kind of stuff. And this is obviously taking the mick out of, Reaganomics and, the American government. It's run by the businesses. I mean, even the Vatican, there's no, the religious right is full of shit, in this movie. But, if this had been even a few years later, it would have had more room for all of that. I mean, so to me, like the Catwoman thing, like there was this moment, like after Basic Instinct, especially, that's what, 92? Where there is this moment of, and Sandra Bernhard was part of this, because this was an era when you could not be gay. You lost your job if you were gay in Hollywood. If you were openly gay, you were done. And she came out and said she was bi, and she was clearly LGBT. And this was the era where it was up, overturning the Eucharist to draw attention to the plague that was ongoing that Ronald Reagan hadn't mentioned for years. And it was that or just nothing. Or, I mean, this is a few years after, people said, we're not really sure. I mean, it's like we have vaccine conspiracies today. Don't forget there were AIDS conspiracies. And people said, we're not really sure what causes it. Maybe lock up all the gays in concentration camps just to be sure. And that was something that was mainstream, discussed on, CNN, discussed in the newspapers. And so that's the kind of conservative culture. Obviously, like the Mayflowers are super S&M, they're super gay, they're super post Basic Instinct. Catwoman was part of that. And I sort of see all of these as kind of like of this piece where I could imagine a, happier world, a world with more, not just gay possibilities, but just sexual possibilities across the spectrum. A world where, the Mayflowers and Hudson Hawk and, not do you want me to rape him? I just think he's a dumb enforcer thug guy.
Yeah.
But but this panoply of sexual possibilities of presentations. So to me, actually, the Catwoman example of Michelle Pfeiffer in a skin tight rubber suit with a whip, yes, I want that inscribed at the heart of American culture, and the Mayflowers fit in with that, but we're almost a few years too early.
No, I totally agree. I just want to say, I'm sorry, Scott, I totally agree. I do think it's interesting though, that the movie, everything you say, yes, obviously Michelle Pfeiffer is a lot of people's sexual awakenings in all kinds of ways. I mean, there's that. I mean, everything about what she does as Catwoman was confusing for everybody, in all the ways. Men, women, children, everybody was like, how do I feel? How do I feel right now?
You have no idea what this did to like Batman Returns did some odd things to a 10-year-old Scott Weatherly. Like
100%, right? Yeah. But again, everything that you're saying is true, because I'm with you. I always read that Alfred the butler, of course, he's fucking Alfred the butler. I know you're saying in the pictures he looks uncomfortable, but he's clearly part of the throuple.
Oh, he's a sadist. Yeah, he's a sadist.
Right. Like the Mayflowers are both banging Alfred, right? This is very Rocky Horror. There's a lot of Dr. Frankenfurter going on and Richard E. Grant's, and I don't know if he ever played him on stage, but goddamn, I hope so. I mean, I can imagine Tim Curry, the king of all kings, who deserved an Oscar nomination for his role as Dr. Frankenfurter, but he I could totally see Richard E. Grant being like, I'm on stage, I'm playing, but he plays him very much like Dr. Frankenfurter. So I feel like there's a lot of that going on. There's a lot of Rocky Horror action here. And I can totally see like Alfred is the boy that they both use, both Minerva and, and Darwin, he has time with both of them separately and together. And I think that's how I've always read it, without a doubt. And again, like you said, it's 91, so it couldn't be, they had to hide it. But it was, for anybody who was even remotely paying attention, it was pretty clear what was going on. Yeah.
One thing to say about the you said about the year and the 90s. I mean, we come into the 90s, and the 90s becomes a sort of like the independent movie maker decade. But 91 is this weird year for this thing, because you said about like it's still the straight up kind of action film. I mean, we've already talked about Last Boy Scout, which is very much that. Like it's it exists in the world of Lethal Weapon, like it's that kind of thing. But this is also the same year as Point Blank, and Point Blank, being made, and everyone was like, "No, that's a straight up action film." You go, "No, it's a story of two men that fall in love with each other." Like, no, it's not. No, it's not.
It is.
No, it is. It completely
really
is. But this is also the year that like Reservoir Dogs was released. This is the same year as on a lot of said Point Break. Hook was kind of subversive, and people weren't sure what to make of that. Naked Lunch came out this year. The Fisher
Oh my
King.
God, Peter Weller, right? Jesus Christ, I forgot that they tried to make Naked Lunch into a movie.
Yeah, you've got
all the drugs that William S. Burroughs ever took. They piled into making that movie.
I do kind of like. I do enjoy the film, but you've also got like Robert De Niro's Cape Fear. Like, you're right. This is a year when people start to say, well, I wonder if we can start pushing certain boundaries. And as you say, like, these are all films I think would become more. It's the same year as Silence of the Lambs. A scene where, like, so I think you're right. No, I'm not saying about sexual liberation. There's definitely more in Hudson Hawk, but I do feel there's a sense of a sea change coming of like, oh, we're done with the 80s. We're looking for the new thing. Where does this go? And Hudson Hawk feels like a part of that kind of shift in pop culture.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, obviously, I'm of that generation, but there were few shifts in American history, like in American culture, like there were in the early 90s.
Mm.
And you could feel it in the air. I was in high school, and, I remember, the first Gulf War came out, and it was just like nobody gave a shit. I was the only one who seemed to notice or care. It's like our country's at war. We went to war on a timetable. Like, this is really weird. And it was just like everybody was like, well, we're just going to school. I mean, who gives a shit? I mean, it was the era of hair bands. It was we were 12 years into a fascist government, that literally rode to power saying, let's criminalize abortion. Why can't the president just do that unilaterally? And Bush was like the nice bureaucratic tail end of that, who sort of repudiated that. But it was just like, it seemed like this was going to go on forever. Music was dead. I mean, even I love Madonna, but even the sort of stuff we got that was transgressive was sort of corporate transgressive. It was plastic transgressive, And in the background, you had like Nine Inch Nails coming in. 2 years later, an alt band out of Georgia is the number one band of the world, and they follow that up with a alternative album that's entirely acoustic and is beautiful. And Nirvana comes in, Nine Inch Nails has skyrocketed, and it's like all of those top 10 charts went from hair bands and the dumb ballads to like grunge and crazy serious artsy stuff overnight. And it was Clinton. It was like we went from just 12 years of shut up and salute, doddering nonsense, to like, don't forget, Clinton ran into office on gay marriage, on socialized medicine. We had a guy who ran on that coming into office, and it was like, oh, the hippies from the 60s have taken over. There's been a sea change. And so there was just this line where nothing in the culture was for me or anyone I knew. And we were on the outs. We were just, street punks who had nothing imaginable outside of, weird little British comics in the back of our comic store, and we knew there was nothing for us in this culture. And then 2 years later, we ran the culture. And I've never experienced a sea change like that in my life. So I sorry to, but Hudson Hawk would have fit perfectly on the other end of that sea change, but it came on the cusp of it.
Yeah, but it's weird how it was never. It's one of those films because of that. Like a lot of these films get revisited, don't they, and reevaluated and stuff. And especially with home media, like it came out in 91, probably hit home media 92, but by that point, see, people had moved on, and we'd had, like you say, like Batman Returns in 92, and there were a bunch of other things that had come out, and I think it got lost in the shuffle. But it definitely feels of the time now. It feels relevant. Not relevant per se, but like it feels like, say, if this was released now with the right cast, like I can imagine this doing like, if not massive, at least pretty well, where people would be like, "Oh, this is great. This is what I was looking for. This is the kind of thing I've been waiting for."
I agree, and I think it's funny because this all ties back together to the way you launched it, though, Scott, talking about like all of his weird filmography versus what he was doing. What Julian is saying, like he was pushing, he was transgressive, he was trying to do something different. He probably, like us, saw Rocky Horror Picture Show and was like, I didn't know you were allowed to do that. I didn't know that was okay. Oh my God, can I do that? Because like one of my favorite, because again, and I know it's totally like a comic, it's a family film and it's a Rob Reiner film, but he made a movie in 1994 called North that I 100% love. Elijah Wood, he plays the fucking Easter Bunny.
Yeah.
It is so good. I was working at the movie theater when it came out, and like you would watch the movies on the Wednesday before the Friday, to make sure they ran because it was still filmed, and no one wanted to watch that. I'm like, I'm all about that. I love that movie so much. And again, it was another one of those things that Bruce Willis was like, I'm coming off Color of Night, where full frontal nudity, right? Release Bruce Willis's dong. Pulp Fiction, yikes. His follow-up to that is North. And again, that's all about that. He's like, I don't want to just be this thing. I want to be all the things. And I feel like his career, Hudson Hawk, is his. It's whether it was he was self-sabotaging, whatever, however you want to look at it.
One thing I should say.
I need to interject and just say we just got the secret origin of Tony Farina. It's like Quentin Tarantino at the video rental place. It's like, there's Tony, and he's working at the movie theater, and he's just like, sure, I'll watch North,
Yeah.
And he's like,
That's
I'll
the one.
investigate all this stuff.
That's totally true. That's fact. Okay, yes. So
one of the things is, you are right. There's a point you made here about what Bruce Willis was trying to do, because he made his biggest success film was still Die Hard, and he'd obviously made the sequels, and he made Die Hard 2, and then he made he was being billed as another action hero. So when they were coming up to, I mean, it comes a bit later, but when they started to do Planet Hollywood, and he was interviewed for that, and they kept putting the headlines of like action stars open this thing, and he was pissed because he's like, I'm not an action star. I've done all these other things. So you're right. What he was trying to do repeatedly was not so much reinvent himself, but was to just show, I can do all this other stuff. I can work with all these people. I can do these other things. I'm an actor. I'm not John McClane. Like, I'm not that thing. Again, 95 is a really good example of his career. I know we're sort of talking about things, but he does like Die Hard with a Vengeance, which I love. Great film. He makes a cameo in Four Rooms, which is, I think he does it as a bit of a sort of a favor for Tarantino. And then he does 12 Monkeys with Gilliam. So you kind of like,
that movie.
Oh, it's a great film. But again, like, it's not, people want to badge that as like, oh, it's an action sci-fi film. No, it's not. It's a bit of a head fuck. It's a different kind of film. And then
he remakes Yojimu.
Yeah, and then he works in and goes like,
with Last Man Standing. It's like, take this.
Again, like, no, this what I'm saying. The guy's career is actually kind of interesting, because that's he just like, I'm going to do Last Man Standing, and I'm going to be in the Beavis and Butthead movie.
Yes, well, his wife definitely was the producer of the Beavis and Butthead film, so but that was also a favor. But yeah, in the same year, I know. No, I think you're totally right. I think you're right. He wanted to be an actor. And he, as opposed to like, I'm an actor. And it's funny now. And again, Julian, you called it. He's so far ahead. Like, he's the transgressive guy. Like, now, remember, Liam Neeson was a big serious movie star, right? And now he's just action guy. He will never stop making action movies. It's to the point where like fucking The Kingsman is made. And right. And like Colin Firth is now an action star, because every old man gets to be an action star, and old women get to be action stars. And I'm all for it. And I fucking love Gunpowder Milkshake, and I hope they make another one. But what I'm saying is like, he's the guy who's like, oh, real serious actors can also be in action movies. And again, at the time, you were either an action star or you were an actor. You couldn't be both. And he's the one who tried the hardest. He paved the way for everybody to get to be both. And his, including his ex-wife, like, because Demi Moore made her action movies too. She kept coming, so.
But the thing is, just to say, I'm going to sort of blow him. Just one last thing for Bruce. Throughout this period, like, he was also determined to not always be the hero. Like, I think he was kind of, because Arnie and Stallone very much like, oh no, I shall always be, the Terminator's done, right? I'm going to very much be the hero for the most part. Stallone the same. But then, you get like, and I'm not saying they're great films, but like Bruce Willis was willing to do like The Jackal. Later on, like, he does The Siege, where he's a complete dick. I think he was willing to do those kinds of things. They weren't great, but he was always willing to try something new. So I think fair play to Bruce Willis for being. I think this shows he was quite not. I'm not saying he's versatile. I think he was a bit of a New Jersey sort of snarky guy, but he was trying to apply it to different things.
Okay, we all love Bruce Willis.
We do.
I'm going to concede the point. No need to present further testimony. But one thing that I really love, and where I see this film in terms of Bruce Willis stuff is, we can all debate Bruce's, relative merits as an actor and artistic choices, and he certainly made them. But what occurs to me is this is this is the movie where he is at the pinnacle of his career and he's doing exactly what he wants to do. And I think that so often we don't see anything like that in Hollywood, right? We see all these actors and, they're terribly serious, right? Like, I am a method actor, don't question my routine. Or they have to, be very nice to fans and they have to say, like, look, I know I hit the jackpot, like I'm thinking, but you don't, but this is the movie where probably, if not the number one actor in the world, certainly on the top echelon of most highest paid top, 2-3 actors in the world, just goes, I want to leverage this power. I want to leverage this power, this money, this influence to make a wackadoo movie that is exactly what I want to make with my buddies, and we're going to put in everything that we enjoy, and it's going to be a big hit because everything I touch is a big hit, right? But it's he is able to make this freakishly weird movie because he's having fun, and you see the fun on screen. Everybody's having fun in this movie. Everybody knows this is like this had to have been like the Bruce Willis party set, right? It's like, there's certain actors who is like, everybody loves being on a Michael Bay set, well, except for Megan Fox and certain, people. But I mean, like Anthony Hopkins is like, fuck yeah, sign me up. Like, it's going to be a party. It's Michael Bay, ain't no party like a Michael Bay party because a Michael Bay party don't stop, and this is Bruce Willis just going like, hey guys, let's get together. Let's make this wackadoo crazy thing. I don't even know how to classify it. It's not our job to sell it. We got people for that, and so anyway, I mean, I love the idea of him just having fun. This guy, who's at the peak of Hollywood, just letting loose. And we rarely have ever seen that, in cinema history, let alone, in our lifetimes.
No, I agree with that. And that's it's a funny thing of, like, say, using that creative power to be creative and not be restrained. And I can imagine
not to be
right.
safe. Yeah, it's easy to be safe. It's easy to do the safe thing. It's easy to do. And again, I'm not shitting on people who are like, I'm just going to do the safe thing. I'm going to make Taken 3. I'm going to do whatever. You do. But I do think, I agree. I think there's something, and again, there's just this edge to this movie that is making fun of itself. It's making fun of everything else. It's going to do Singing on a Fucking Star, and it's going to just own it. And they were both really good singers. I mean, Dan Aiello is a better singer than Bruce Willis, but they are all in. And everybody is just doing the thing that they're being asked to do, and this could have ruined a lot of careers, but they all were good enough. That's the thing. Everybody in this movie was good enough at what they do. I mean, I don't think Andie MacDowell's just fine. She's the weakest link in the film. As an actor, she's just she's fine. But like, again, because she's just fine, because she's pleasant to work with, she's one of those people that everybody like, oh, I got to make that movie with Andie MacDowell. She's delightful. Well, you're going to get to keep working even if you're in Hudson Hawk. And I think, like, you know what I mean? Like, so it's okay. Like this, but because
the
they
kiss
knew,
of death, even if you were in Hudson Hawk,
it's
like,
true
the
though.
eyes bulge. I'm looking at your resume here. We're considering hiring you for this. You're a really brilliant actor. On the other hand, we're in Hudson Hawk.
But you say about people having a great time and being talked into things, right? You are right, and I think I completely agree with that. I can imagine, like, between takes, like, Bruce Willis breaks out the harmonica and just jams with people, like, impromptu, like, it's in his pocket the entire time. But one of the things, like you say, everyone's talented in this. Like, Richard E. Grant, Sandra Bernhardt, like, they're at the top. They're really bringing power performances that are just funny and scary, but like you say, just light up the screen. The banter between Bruce Willis and Danny Aiello is working really well. I think, to be fair to Andie MacDowell, she's an actress. She's a sort of a rom-com comedic actress, kind of that sort of level. Like, I love her in Groundhog Day and a couple of things I think she's in later on. But the fact they were like, so they were probably like, Andy, what can you do? She's like, I can do dolphin impressions. Fuck it, it's in the film.
Oh my God, that's such a great point, because that goes on way too long. That is the one part of the movie that I was like, okay. But again, that's also part of the movie. It's like, can we annoy you? It annoys Sandra Bernhardt's character, who, when we see her on the table singing "Snaps, We've Got the Power," so loud. I mean, that's her singing. And again, to juxtapose them singing well and singing like a Bing Crosby, like a road movie. And this is obviously a love letter to the road movies, to the Bob Hope, Bing Crosby road movies too. But yeah, so that whole scene, it annoys you as the viewer, but it breaks Minerva. What's the thing that can break Minerva? Is that it's so good. Yeah.
But clearly they were like, what can you do? Andy, what can you do? I can make a dolphin noise. Brilliant. That's it. That's the one.
Come on, you bitch.
Yeah.
I actually feel like that was improv. Like she was so like Bernhardt was like, this is the moment where she snaps, and then that was like perfect. It's so good.
Yeah. One of the things I want to touch on is I do want to talk about, because I did read it, and I want to make at least some reference to the book that we've read. Because one of the things that I find interesting about the film is
I need to interject here again. What is the cover of that of the Hudson Hawk novelization? It is just a straight-on shot of Bruce Willis looking cool in sunglasses. Like there's nothing, like nobody ever tried to sell this movie based on anything except Bruce Willis in a trench coat, Bruce Willis in sunglasses. That is it. Did we mention Bruce Willis is in it? Also Bruce Willis.
It's
Bruce Willis, the novel.
The name Bruce Willis is across the top of the book. Bigger,
as though he wrote it.
Bigger than the guy who wrote it.
Yeah.
A novel by
he
Jeffrey
no
Marsh.
role. It's a novelization. It's like the novel is actually called Bruce Willis Hudson Hawk.
Yeah, that's right.
So yeah, I thought so. I don't even think that's on set. That's just a holiday photo he took when he was in Italy. Like that's just
looking cool. Yeah,
looking cool.
It looks like a publicity still. Like
yeah.
It is. It's totally is.
He was just ordering a drink. He was yelling. The way that his mouth looked like he was yelling at one of his kids.
Yeah,
he's like Tallulah, and they took the picture, and then that's it. Yeah.
One of the things in the film you say about there's a series of edits that are cutaways. That are sort of like, there's the one where he comes off, he hits the awning and he bounces off, and all of a sudden he falls into the chair at the apartment with the Mario brothers. And then there's the one where he sort of like falls off, hits the thing, and ends up falling into the chair at the restaurant with Anna. The book clearly has a problem with this, because it's like, we can't do funny cutaways in prose. So the way they deal with it is that he falls into the chair, but he'd forgotten that he'd hit in the pavement, fallen in a cab, and it has like about a short paragraph to explain how he got to the Marios, but they want to keep it punchy. But it's so funny that it's sort of like half the comedy, because it's a visual slapstick farce. So much of the comedy doesn't translate, obviously. And no offense to Jeffrey Marsh, he's not the snappiest of writers. So it falls to the dialogue. So some of the funnier scenes, it is the dialogue that's carrying it. But the other thing this thing does, in the film, Bruce Willis posts himself to the Vatican. That's how he gets into the Vatican to steal one of the items. The book doesn't do that. It acknowledges that it's stupid, and he gets in a different way. So there's like, that's about the only thing. And then there's a lady, we said, but like, apart from that, there's no differences. But it is really funny to read the book and be like, I love this film. I find it funny and visually impressive. Somehow the book has made this boring and kind of turgid. Like it's really
true. And I know, and Scott, I know you're like the king of, you read the Alien 3 novelization. I mean, nobody loves novelizations more than Scott Weatherly. It was a slog, and it's tough too, because again, I love this film. And again, I didn't know it existed. I'm here for it. Again, I want prequel comics. I want sequel comics. I want everything. You give it to me. I want the Hudson Hawk soundtrack. I want whatever. You give it to me. I need it all. This was, as Julian said, this is who didn't read it, who was smarter than us. But Julian, it was just Bruce. It was, maybe we can sell this, because this was, again, that was the thing. Like I bought the Batman, the Tim Burton's Batman novelization. I don't remember who wrote it, but I actually thought that whoever did the novelization of that did a really nice job adding things. I have read a lot of novelizations. I think that's actually maybe Sam Hamm did the novelization himself. He did not. No, Scott knows. No, I will never question the novelization. Okay,
yeah, I don't think so.
But it was interesting. It added layers because Batman is such an insular character in the way that they had Jack play. He's having all that internal dialogue. They really got into that. Right. There's no internal dialogue. The deep thoughts that the three of us have had about this film are because they're asking us to do it. The writer and director and are asking us to think these things. They're trying to subvert us and push our buttons. The book is just like, maybe you should go. The book should have just been 300 pages of you should watch the movie.
Why are you reading this book?
Why are you reading
Page
this?
2.
Are you okay?
Yeah.
Do we need to do a welfare check on you? What is wrong with you? And the final answer is because Scott asked.
Yeah.
That's why I did it.
It will
Because
stay
you
on my
are
shelf.
a lovely
It
man.
will.
Yeah.
It will stay on my shelf. It's an interesting conversation piece. I read this on holiday, and I won't deny that like everyone's there reading their airport novels, some sort of like thick thriller or something else, historical fiction, and I'm there with like Hudson Hawk novelization. I got some interesting looks. People are like, what book is that with the young Bruce Willis on? What is that?
No, everybody thought you had fallen through a time warp.
Yeah.
Like, you're clearly somebody from like, there's no way an adult human would possibly be reading a Hudson Hawk adaptation in 2024. Like, clearly, this is not correct.
When they say like, there's nothing unique going on in the world. You're doing something, somebody else is doing the same. There was a moment where I was sat on a sunbed in Tenerife reading the Hudson Hawk novelization. I can guarantee you, I was the only person in the world reading that book.
It's true. It's true.
Somebody at that resort is like, look out at the ocean. There's a tsunami coming. And somebody else is like, check out the talking monkey exhibit. And they're like, that's nothing. Look at this guy here reading a Hudson Hawk novelization.
Yeah. And in the way that, because the way Julian describes it, so true with Bruce Willis's name at the top, because we know, like Ethan Hawke writes novels, like Jewel has books of poetry out. So you'd think like, oh, it's a book Bruce Willis wrote because it says Bruce Willis across the top. So it does make it look like, oh, he found some old novel. Bruce Willis he was a singer. He was an actor. He was clearly a Renaissance man. That is what it looks like too. Yeah.
Two things then, as we sort of bring this into a close. We go through a period where when a decade is in fashion, films get revisited and reassessed. In the last sort of 10, 15 years, we've had films like Halloween 3, Buckaroo Banzai, Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Like, there's a series of films that were in the sort of the 80s that got revisited and reassessed, and we're like, actually, they're kind of good. Or they do have merit in some way, if they're not like classics. They become cult classics. We are entering into the 90s regurgitation of films and pop culture, 90s pop culture. I do wonder, it's very early 90s, but I do wonder if it's time. And do you think if this could be refound and people be like, oh, actually, it re-enters the I don't know, the pop. If hopefully he has many years. I know he's very ill, but if like Bruce Willis was to pass and they were like, here are the underrated films of Bruce Willis's career, do you think this appears on that list?
I do. I think so. I think two things will make it happen. Number one, that's unfortunate. I don't want that to happen, but I do think that's what will happen. But the other thing is in America, and Julian and I have talked about this before, the idea of giving shit away for free. As Gen Xers, the reason that the new Trek verse took off is because it was free. The reason that Xena and Hercules and Jack of All Trades, which was the genius, the best of those three shows, because Bruce Campbell, the king. But all of those things made money and did well because they were free. They were on free antenna TV. The replacement of free antenna TV in America now is called the FAST, free ad-supported television. So like Pluto, Tubi, whatever. That's where this goes. If whoever TriStar, I don't know, all the production companies that own it are probably out of business. But if somebody were to be like, hey, I'm going to sell this for a song to Tubi or Pluto or whatever, let's just release it wide on all those free things. Or created like a Bruce Willis channel, how they'll do that. They'll be like Chuck Norris channel or whatever, like on those free. That's the way. Is because all of my kids watch that shit. They like have the Roku channel. They have Tubi. They have Pluto TV because it's just free and it's just like on. And so I think that's how it finds its audience is if somebody puts it out there for free, gets whatever money they can. that is the way it will find its audience, and they won't necessarily know that it was this, that it was this flop or whatever. They'll be like, oh, this weird movie. So that's how I feel. I do think it has a chance, but I think it would take somebody to care, and maybe this is it. The 20th century geek treatment will be the diving board. What do you think, Julian?
We're pulling the trigger.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I will agree, culturally, 20th century geek is the tipping point. We're known as the tip of the spear in geek circles. Now, but yeah, I don't know. I think that, if anything, I think that I could see this having a revival of interest and respect. I don't know that it's ever going to be inscribed at the heart of, American popular culture. I think it sort of should have, first of all, Sandra Bernhard should be, in everything. She's one of those, you're pitching me a TV show. I'm like, right. And what role does Sandra Bernhard play?
She's the president, sir. Sold. Yes.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I can see your show now. There's nothing else I'm imagining that's good. Yeah. So, I mean, I can see the sort of like gay camp sort of played up angle giving this a second life. But this is not something that really you can imagine being remade. This is not, this is lightning in a bottle. You cannot do this with another cast. You almost like would have to honor it by doing another crazy movie where you just make a list of crazy fun shit you want to throw together and do that. Look, I'd love to see, the Mayflowers, get together, sort of, how they got together, played in the, with the actors at their current age. I'd love it. It'd probably be great fun. But yeah, I don't know that this is ever going to have that same kind of comeback, except in terms of reputation.
Yeah.
And it certainly deserves that. I mean, this has, I was looking in, this has 3 points on Jupiter Ascending, and its Rotten Tomatoes rating. It's 31 to 28. So, but I mean,
the shit I love. I'm sorry, you guys. That's twice. I mean, you guys liked this one though. You didn't. Yeah.
No, I mean, no, legit. This is Oh, by the way, the Batman novelization, Craig Shaw Gardner.
Okay.
And when you think of like novelizing Hudson Hawk, I think it's sort of like one thing I always think of is and I'm a big fan of Shoot 'em Up. And I think this movie is sort of like prefigures that in terms of being consciously over the top and not taking itself too seriously as an action movie. But you can imagine, how would you write a novelization to Shoot 'em Up? Like, this is not a good idea.
It's a pop-up book.
Be a better idea. And also
that's brilliant. I would care for that. Yeah. Butterfinger could read it. Yeah. It's funny though. You know what's funny is you mentioned Shoot 'em Up, which I loved, and that bombed, right? But then they made Free Fire, and they made it as an indie, which is clearly they were like, what if we remade Shoot 'em Up? And we just put everybody in a parking garage in really bad wigs. And put them in tight polyester. And that movie also bombed. People weren't so maybe there's the trick is keeping it small, right? Yes. Like Free Fire really had a small budget though. All those people wanted to just be in that movie. There was like no budget for that movie. They literally shot it in a parking garage. But I think and maybe that's it. It just needs like the indie treatment. And again, 65 million today is considered an indie budget, where in 1991 it was ridiculous. So if you give them the exact same budget and you're like, go, maybe but I'm with you. Like what I think would also be brilliant is like Hudson Hawk 2. Like, but with just a totally different cast, different everything, but just pretend it's a continuation of
the legacy sequel. The legacy
sequel. Yeah,
it's Hudson Hawk and Anna's
Junior. Hudson Hawk Junior. Hudson Hawk the third. Yeah,
I was going to say that because I think you're right. I think this. I don't think this will get the full respect. I think it'll fit in that like as a cult darling. It'll fit in that sort of like cult category where they're like, oh no, this is a cool film, and people will sort of get a special edition with loads of bonus features and that kind of thing. I mean, I've got a pretty good edition here, but that thing of a sequel, and this is one of those things. This looked like so much fun on set, and this is clearly like there's huge parts of this that are ad libbed. There's like, as you say, like the back of a napkin list somewhere that's got like we want to do these things on it. Cool. you could never, because I was thinking like, I'm obviously, I'm a big fan of like the pulps and this idea of like, doing these characters and going on different adventures and all stuff. I don't think you could ever replicate this, like a sequel of this, because if you have to up it, like there's a point at which this loses that thing and almost ends up becoming a parody of the satire and the parody of itself, and it starts eating its own tail, where like instantly like, oh, it's not as good as the first one, and it's sort of, it hasn't got the same spark, because you're then thinking, oh, I don't have the Mayflowers, or you could bring them back. To be fair, like they're covered in metal. They just sort of they are preserved.
Can
in
you
that metal.
fucking believe it? That's all you gotta say, and
Yeah.
that's the way you live. Yeah.
This film is one of those films that I just don't think you could sequelize it. Although it's sort of like it feels like the characters could go off on another adventure, I don't think you could ever sequelize it unless you were to go like, I don't know. It just feels like it's wacky enough that this is, to sequelize it would be so. I wouldn't want to do it. It'd be too
And that's
hard.
okay. And you know what? It's okay. Some things are just what they are. And like, not everything needs to be a legacy sequel. Not everything needs to be brought back. Sometimes you need to move on and do something different. And I know that there's this push. I just read something recently like the Babadook is getting a theatrical release this weekend.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's like 10 years on, like nobody saw it. And they're like, oh, but now people have. So they're going to do like one of those Fathom events, like limited theatrical releases. And like that is a thing, like they just re-released Star Wars and it did really well. They just re-released like they're just so, and again, now that this is one of those, because I mean it was, but you never know, like an Alamo Draft House, somewhere like that, one of those kinds of places where they're like, we're going to do an exclusive thing for our chain of theaters, our small kind of indie weird places. Alamo Draft House would be great. I think like, you know what gets midnight showings is Firefly, is Serenity. Like Serenity gets midnight showings. That movie totally tanked too, just like the series did, just like everything to do with it. But it has its legions of fans. Rocky Horror Picture Show tanked, Fight Club tanked, but they get midnight movies. So I think maybe this could eventually make that midnight movie circuit. I think that would be an interesting place.
Sing along version. That's what you do with this. A sing along version. You play it on the screen, and every time they do a song, you have the words and you have the ball that sort of goes along, including when Sandra Bernhardt's doing I got the power. And the words crop up and there's a ball that sort of goes along with it. I think, make it fun, make it sort of a kind of thing like that. I think that'd be excellent.
I love the, super gay, like dress up reenactments of like Rocky Horror. Can you imagine that with this?
Yes.
With like people dressed up as the characters and like, oh, I'm playing Mayflower.
You could be Kit Kat dressed in Anna's dress.
Yeah. Yes.
No, I mean the creativity.
Just don't sit next to Butterfingers because you don't want to be next to him.
You don't want to be next to him.
Yeah, I mean, it's that energy of cosplay and that fun of dressing up and looking fabulous and embracing. I mean, that would be almost as good. I mean, for Rocky, they did, Rocky Horror, not that weird franchise with a similar name, but for Rocky, they did the sort of later revival on Fox where they, that's kind of what Hudson Hawk should do. Like, it should be like, let's get, we'll get the legacy actors back in a different role, just like Tim Curry came back, to play the criminologist, and, we'll get a whole new cast to come in and just say, look, this is an immortal film. You can't duplicate it. Let's just pay homage to it in that way.
I love that. And I think, it's funny. And again, because my all-time favorite film, but as you know, Heathers was made into an off-Broadway musical and it totally bombed in America. It didn't do well. It was like high school productions were like where it was at. It moved to the West End, blew up. You guys love it over there. And it's actually, you can watch a West End production for free on Roku of the musical. And it's spectacular. Because I never got to see it live because it was only off Broadway. Like it was like in Hoboken. This would actually be an interesting. This would be something to do the musical version of. You can keep side by side. You can keep swinging on the star. You keep the power. And I actually, in my mind now, I actually see the Minerva Mayflower character. I've got the power. Even if it doesn't have to be a jukebox musical, but you could because there's all the songs that are already there. So I mean, to me, that would also be a way to honor it by putting it on stage.
I've got so many images in my head of how this becomes a stage performance of like Anna is sort of like, backlit to look like angelic when she comes on screen, and all these other massive sort of
I
stage
mean, you
contraption that
obviously,
is the Leonardo da Vinci thing.
if
Oh,
you're doing a
amazing.
jukebox musical, Madonna's Like a Prayer.
Yes.
And
Oh,
you play homage to the video, right? The video where Madonna, makes out with Jesus. So you have Anna, because again, keep in mind, a nun is leaving her post to bang a criminal in this movie.
yeah.
You can't get more like everybody's super randy in this. So I mean, I'm here. To me, I'm here for that. And again, that's because again, somebody just took the risk and was like, "What if I made Heather's into an opera, into a musical?" They're like, "That's dumb," but then it worked, and now it's like sells out the West End, and and now it'll probably finally move back to America because you guys allowed it to be cool, just like the Ramones. Like we could never understand them here, and then they went there, and everybody was like, "Oh, maybe they are cool because they said so over there." So I don't know. I love this movie. I'm so glad I want to see it live on. So now I'm gonna imagine I'm with you. Now that I've just said it, I wouldn't have thought it until you were.
We're gonna
will it.
We're gonna will
a musical version into it. Yeah,
we're gonna will it into existence. Yeah, you're right. It deserves to have something.
Maybe in the minutes we have left, maybe we could go around and just say what our favorite and least favorite stuff is, in this film. And I want to say that in addition to the, do you want me to rape him? Line out of nowhere, the other line that gets me every time is in that ambulance scene as Bruce Willis is, it's a great action movement as he's holding on to the fabric, on a trolley, behind the ambulance. Yeah, on a gurney. And, a sort of teenage valley girl who's up next to him. And, he catches a cigarette and, smokes it and says, "Oh, I thought throws it away." That's sort of the slapstick fun. But the girl comes up and says, "Hey, mister, are you going to die?" And I don't know, like, that always gets me. And I don't know if it's like my inability to deal with, it seems so with millennials, like it seems so, I get along with millennials, but like Gen Z, like there's a kind of like, that was really rude, right?
Yeah.
Is this an autistic thing? Like, what, who says, like, "Hey, are we about to watch you be murdered here?" I think that's an acceptable thing to ask. This is like a generation gap there. That's so hilarious. But I do think the things that bother me in this movie, I think almost everything is perfect. The narrator's crap. The narrator at the beginning and the end needs to go. The beginning scene with Da Vinci doesn't serve, any function, except to set up Da Vinci's lair. You could do that easier. And those springboard, like, it is clearly thinks anytime people fall from this. Oh, and I don't like Danny Aiello's survival at the end. I know they want to make him. You need to just let him stay dead, like the original draft. But I firmly believe that I know they put a spotlight on it. So, but. And also sort of that idea you're talking about, the awnings, and sort of like this movie has the idea that anytime people fall from a great height, as long as they land safely enough, anything could happen. So like, basically, if you land, you basically are in a like Super Mario Brothers warp tube, and you could just appear anywhere else on that bounce, right? So like, he escapes the Vatican in that chicken coop, and then like suddenly he's right at the date, and some of that you can kind of get away with, but it does seem to be that there are those cuts, and kind of as a writer, I like it, where it's like there are a lot of moments in this where even like traveling, where sure, just throw him in a crate, open up the box, and he's in Peanuts, and oh shit, I'm in Rome, yeah, sure. There's a lot of just kind of shorthand where kind of as a writer, I appreciate that they didn't bother to go through the motions, like all the stuff that's really hard and to do to make entertaining. They're just like, we have a magic wand. Let's do this as quickly as possible. And it works, So I don't know. I kind of like that stuff, but there are these few missteps. But what's amazing to me is outside of this small list of things, I think everything in this movie is pitch perfect. Like second by second, I wouldn't change a thing.
Yeah, for me, the one thing that I don't like the long numbers. I could do without that. I don't the hell of a lot of Wong numbers, and then the music cue, like eesh, that's that. And again, that never. And I get what they're doing. You know, the whole point of that these idiots are sitting around like reading, because then he says do chin because they're just counting because they're bored, and people today don't even know what a phone book is. I love the fact that all the songs and the years of the songs are wrong, like the times of the songs. I think that's brilliant because again, it's like it's a testament to like you could tell this is pre-internet when they did this, and it's almost like a way to like break people's brain because like Super Bowl 17, Whitney Houston was like not born, so that just makes me laugh that that's the one that he randomly picks because then he just doesn't because they just don't give a fuck. So to me, I don't like the Wong numbers. There's things that I just think I don't like the dolphin. I do think it goes on too long, but I do think in the movie, it is what it is. It does what it does. I mean, it's obviously one of my, and again, this is a team I love. I wish they had made 2 flops in a row. 2 movies I love and admire and adore forever. So I'm with you. I mean, its pacing is perfect. Everybody knows that even Ig and Ook, who have nothing to say, know what they're doing. It is, and I know that like Bruce Willis said, and when he's making 12 Monkeys, if he had a time machine, he'd go back and stop himself from making Hudson Hawk. And I feel like that's one of those things you say because it bombed, and that's the thing to say. But I hope in my heart he loves this movie like I do. It's kind of like Bradley Cooper hates the A-Team, and that makes me sad because I fucking love that.
Film.
I love that film. And and again, like this, it knows what it was. It was like, what if we made the A-Team, but with a lot of money, and it's just dumb. And they call out the Rube Goldberginess of the bullshit in that movie. And it's everybody, Charlito Copley, it was great. Everybody looked like they were having a ton of fun in that. So again, but Bradley Cooper shits on that movie. And I was like, but you look like you were having fun. You know, you can tell. So I feel like, sure, you can say, man, maybe we're never going to work again. But I hope they all put this at the top of their CV forever instead of it being a liability that they were in Hudson Hawk. They're like, fucking A. I was Ig in Hudson fucking Hawk. God damn it. So I love it. So yeah, there was a few missteps. I disagree. I don't love the Butterfinger joke. I totally get where you're coming from, Julian. I do think it's super subversive, and I understand the point of it. It's a shorthand way to say these are terrible people who do terrible things, and it's more of an indictment on Kaplan because it was Butterfinger who says it. If Snickers says it or Almond Joy says it, it's different because it's Butterfinger. You're like, oh, okay, but Kaplan's the monster. I understand. This movie is so full of shorthand. It's so full of this is not a movie made for people who are watching there. If you're on your phone for this movie, you miss it all. And that's what I love about it. Is it in a 90-minute, again, it could have been, or what is it, 110? It could have been 100 because you cut 10 minutes at the beginning. 100 minutes. So it could have been 90, 10 minutes of Da Vinci at the beginning. I'm with you. Don't need. Because that to me subverts the point of this film, which is you kind of got to pay attention. We're like showing you everything in the first 10 minutes. Here's what's happening. So anyway, thanks for letting me wax. I agree. I'll let you land, Scott. Sorry.
No, I think Julian, you guys mentioned we're gonna counter the point.
I just wanted to say that even though I've defended the rape joke, you're wrong about I mean you're right about the Wong numbers, right? Like I mean that is cringy. And I want to say that, although I've been very, incel Snyder-esque, let's say, about, the rape joke here and how we're all so sensitive in this day and age. Yeah, I mean, everybody has an absolute right to be offended by that. And I certainly know people who have, including myself, who've suffered trauma and, would not find that funny. So, everybody has an absolute right to say that.
I wasn't trying to fight you, brother. I knew where you were coming from.
I know.
Sure.
I just want that on the record because I know I'm like waving my queer flag over here, in a weird arch right thing, but
no, I think from me, I think from scene to scene, this film works. Sometimes those scenes seem to be like the wrong scene together, but they work. In the thing, I just think it's more a case of like moments, isn't it? This film where things don't quite work. Again, like you say, some of the sort of the jokes. I agree that the opening of this film drags and it's kind of short, but it feels a lot longer than it should be. It's weirdly, and also like there's so much money spent because there's like Da Vinci and all his assistants. You're like, who's costuming these people? No, fuck it off. This is ridiculous. Like boring. So all that, I think, yeah, I agree. Gone. I love the fact that I said the pace of this film is just, relentless. I love its zaniness. I love the fact that, like you said, like if you don't find a joke funny, cool. There's going to be 3 more in the next 4 seconds. Like, let's just keep going. I love the fact, like you say, that actually this film is a lot smarter than people give it credit for. Because if you don't pay attention to it, if you do pay attention to it, you start to realize all the jokes and the sort of the references, and there's all these sort of like, there's a lot of references that have aged. Like if you were born anytime after like 1990, like half these things aren't going to land with you. But I also like some of the choreography. Actually, this is one thing I want to sort of respect is this is a slapstick film. And there's moments slapstick doesn't always work for me. And I think there are moments when it sort of lurches into too much into sort of cartoony. Like I'm all for certain things, like when they've got the bombs with the suckers on, and Snickers gets it stuck to his head and all that kind of stuff. Love it. And like where they're sort of they've been immobilized, but they're still sort of like talking to each other about what's on the page. And they're like, "Can you turn the page? I can't turn it. I want to see what the results are." Like all that is brilliant because all that's really good banter. But when it actually has to get to the sort of the big punchy climax, I feel that becomes very choppy. And there's some great scenes like Butterfingers bursting into the door to tell them it's not going well and ends up with 3 arrows in his chest. And he then turns around and is like, "They've betrayed us." And Kaplan's like, "Right." And then just leaves him. And he sort of keels over. So that works. But then the inevitable fight between Kaplan and Hudson Hawk, that's one of the things I hate in this film, because it's that thing of like that thing where he's sort of like he's being kicked in the back, in the front, in the back, and then it's just sort of Bruce Willis going boing 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 boing, and I'm like, and he goes, "Oh, my hat," and then he goes over the top. I'm like, oh, that joke is unfortunately doesn't land with me. Like it feels maybe like a hair's breadth too silly, where I'm like, oh, okay, you've crossed that line. And there's a couple of moments throughout the film that are like that, where I'm just like, oh, you've had that kind of cutting humor. I agree. The thing on the freeway, that girl does say like, "Are you gonna die?" is laugh out loud funny. I think that is hilarious. And I love that, so especially because again, Bruce Willis plays it perfectly, where he sort of looks at it and he's like, "What?" And then goes through a toll booth and pays, like literally just throws any random change at it and just goes through the toll booth. Like I find that is funny. I laugh out loud at that. But the ending feels like, oh, we need an action climax. We've got to have these bits. But you're also going to, so I'm not like, but then I'm also going to enjoy the fact that like Bunny ball, and he gets blasted out. It goes after the tennis ball out the window. It's that's funny. Like there's all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. Yeah, there's moments when the silliness takes over, the dolphin humor, some things, and that's where I'm like, oh. But other than that, and it's not much. It's just moments where I think it takes over. Other than that, I agree. I think this film is massively underrated, and yeah, you're right, people were shitting on it because it wasn't a success, but also because people didn't get it. Where they're like, "Oh no, that weird film I did, yeah, I don't want to talk about that." Peter Weller kind of did it with Buckaroo Banzai, where for like for a while in the 80s he was like, "Nah, it was a weird piece of shit that I didn't really do." Now he comes back and they sort of have him do conventions and stuff, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm willing to talk about it. It was a great fun. I did this and I got to do that and da da da." So I don't know. I think people do, like, there's a thing, isn't it, in Hollywood? You've got to sort of praise your darlings and and sort of deflect from the ones you didn't do so well. So, but yeah, I agree. I think I've always enjoyed this film. I hope it gets kind of refound and people give it at least that cult respect or cult sort of. I love the idea of people going into a cinema and singing along dressed as the Mayflowers, or as Alfred, or as like different characters. I think that'd be amazing. So I'm all for that. Animal Draft House, do it, or anybody do it, because that'd be amazing. Or a musical version. I'm all up for that as well, by the way. A stage musical of this would be phenomenal. So yes, so there we go. Hudson Hawk, a film 33 years old and rightfully sort of there for rediscovering and reassessing. Okay, we'll leave it there. So we'll sort of leave it there. I'll quickly go around. So as we do wrap this up, thank you very much for both joining me on this little love-in on Hudson Hawk. We'll find another film.
Only 3 human beings who could do this.
Yeah, I know. It really was great, you guys. I love this movie. I love you guys. This was amazing. This is just this is what art is for me. Art brings people together, and you can love it or hate it or whatever. Like I objectively love things that people hate, and I dislike things that are great, that people say are great. But that's the point of art, is that it's out in the world. We all make art and put it out in the world, and if people hate it, that's okay. We've all got bad reviews on things that we're proud of, and so that's why I just want everybody to be proud of this. So I'm proud of our conversation. I do know that my next pick on VHS Strikes Back is also Hudson Hawk, so there should be some lovely Hawk action out in the universe. Whenever my pick comes, this was my pick for the next. I did Last Action Hero, and now I'm doing Hudson Hawk. So I'm making them go back to back on the two movies that I think they loved. Last Action Hero, so I think they'll like this less.
Yeah, I can't see Chris liking this. I think it's going to be a weird amount.
Yeah,
I love Hudson Hawk, and I love you two brothers unironically.
Yeah,
100%. Yes,
this is not a movie. I am not loving this ironically. I just straight out love this. I go to a childlike place of just thrill, of the joy of all of the wacky ideas that should probably not be in a movie together, but are so deliciously wonderful when they are. And it's just a joy to be with you guys to talk about it, and B, imagine the action-loving father taking his son in the Leatherman jacket to see Hudson Hawk in 1991, and both of them never recovering.
Changed forever. Was I into Minerva Mayflower? I was. How do I feel about that? Was I into Darwin Mayflower? Oh no. Yeah. That's what this movie was. Yeah, it was like the first time, and I know I'm the one who's got the heart out, so I'm gonna have to. But it was like the first time you see Annie Lennox in that suit in the Sweet Dreams video, and you're like, I'm. That's what my brain said. So that's what Sandra Bernhard is in this movie. I'm like, I'm not sure what's happening.
Yeah, it's doing things to me.
Right.
But yeah, no, it is wonderful. It's a great film, and we will find another one. Like, in fact, we've thrown this in. So we've done on Stories Out of Time and Space. We had a less of a love-in, but it was a constructive conversation around Jupiter Ascending. This has been more of a love-in, so we'll just see. There'll be more down the line of the three of us coming into this thing. But as we sort of sign out, I will go. So Tony, what are you doing, and where can people find you?
Yes, just if you go to arfarina.com, you can get all the juicy stuff I'm doing. You can sign up for my newsletter. You can find out I've got books coming out. October, I've got 2 books coming out. So one's an essay collection that I edited. My next novel in the Austin Chronicles comes out both in October. So that's very exciting. So you can just find out everything you need there. Links to this, to me appearing on your shows. There's a whole podcast feed on my website. Everything you need to know about me, arfarina.com. That's the way to get hold of me.
Excellent, yeah. And Julian, what about yourself? What are you doing, and where can people find you?
I do a lot of weird
things,
and not all of it is candy bar related.
Yeah,
but some. JulianDarius.com. I'm on Stories Out of Time and Space. I write books and make comics, and you should read all those comics.
You should subscribe. Listen, he doesn't do a good enough job, but if you go and subscribe to Martian Lit on Patreon, it's $3 a month, people.
Yeah.
And he gives you everything, whether it's a 30-page book or a 50-page book. He gives it, and when you sign up, people, he gives you the entire back catalog digital download for $3. It is the best. You need to not keep it a secret, my friend. Martian Lit.
Yeah, we should promote that more. I think, more sponsorship for that, because there's some great stuff in there. Like, I often talk about, we talk about this all the time. I've read it all, and it's one of those things where I'm sort of like, I learn from just reading those comics, and then I bring that to make myself look smarter when I talk about films and other things. So it's just, it's a loving circle.
Well, I love you guys, and thanks for that. And Tony, thanks for your contribution all over the years to the Patreon.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate it. It's good. Like you said, it's a big we're just a big circle. Maybe jerk, but we're never been in the same room, so we can't say that. But a circle love of art.
That's how I know I'm straight.
That's how you know, right?
I just keep out of the room.
Right, we're all with Zoom only.
Yeah. It's on a podcast.
That's it. If I haven't got to address those feelings, they don't exist. That's
right. That's right. Yeah.
Okay, well, for us then, there's obviously the Patreon. So for myself and Julian, go check out Stories Out of Time and Space. We've actually had we run all the different channels for everything from iTunes and Spotify and Amazon. We're now on YouTube, just as an audio, but you get some great videos. We've had the majority of our comments and feedback have come from that. We've just done the Alien franchise, and someone said we changed their mind about it as well, which I thought was kind of cool as a comment. So I'm pleased with that. We've got more stuff coming up. We're going to continue our apocalyptic series there, and on here we're doing all kinds of things. But yeah, go check out the Patreon for so much sort of bonus content that we do, and me just chuntering along for 30 minutes a month as well, which I kind of enjoy doing. So hey, for now though, thank you very much, guys. This has been an absolute treat for starting the week, and yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, and we shall see you on the next episode.